host, sabrinasalvati. Doobie-doobie-doo. Salvati. Doobie-doobie-doo. 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 I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati. Doobie-doobie-doo. Sabrina Salvati. Doobie-doobie-doo. Doobie-doobie-doo.
All right. Happy Tuesday, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Sabby Sabs podcast. I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati. If you are new, I just want to let you know that Sabby Sabs podcast is a part of Revolutionary Blackout Network. You can catch me there on Thursdays for the Sabby and JB show. And you can catch me here on Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and every other Sunday. Quick shout out to everyone watching on YouTube, Rockfin, Twitter, and Rumble. And I want to start off the show by saying this. Everybody, please give it up for my comrade, Nick Cruz from Revolutionary Blackout Network, who debated Ro Khanna today. Give Nick a big whoop whoop because he did an amazing job. I think that it exposes some things. Nick did a great job. And I think that this will be a telling moment, you know? So Ro Khanna was there. When you get a chance, watch that interview on Revolutionary Blackout Network, because Ro Khanna, I think, basically came on. Like, he asked to come on the show. I interviewed him about 2 years ago, but he did reach out to Nick and he asked if he could come on the show to talk about strategy. So for those who are not aware, RBN didn't reach out to him. He reached out to RBN and he came onto the show today. And I think Nick really held his feet to the fire about what is the point of the strategy if in the end you guys are just going to go along with what the Dem leadership wants to do. So definitely check that out. Props to Nick there. And welcome back, guys. And happy Tuesday. Welcome. We have quite a bit to discuss tonight. Tonight's theme is the system is fixed. And I think it applies to every story except for the Trudeau story, probably. But for the most part, applies to the other stories. We actually have 5 stories tonight. I didn't have enough room in the thumbnail to put the other one, but we have so much to discuss. I want to start out by giving shout outs to people in the chat. Welcome. Hey. Shout out to Vietnam says, Nick, fire. That's right. He did an amazing job. Greetings, Charmaine. Joy Taylor was passing out joy at FS1. See, people already got jokes. We didn't even get to the story yet. People already got jokes. I saw a number of memes. Greetings, Tim. Hey, Sabs, I still have to find you that clip of the PBD podcast where Jank was allowing those clowns to laugh at Nina Turner for being too black to ever win president. Jank is a cuck. Love ya, Sabs. If you find it, just email it to me. Shout out to DeAndre Rivers for becoming a Sabby member. Let's give DeAndre a big whoop whoop. Greetings, GG. Hello, Sabby. Looking forward to this live. Trudeau stepping down. That's something else. So much for those running to Canada since Trump won. LOL. I supported Jill Stein. Shout out to Miguel says peace. Greetings, CBC voter says happy Tuesday, Sabby Sabs, and Eric T. Red. Shout out to Dr. Darnell. Hello, Sabby. Looking forward to you being very critical of President Trump's second term as you were during President Biden's first term. It's going to be a crazy 4 years, voting green forever. Oh, absolutely. Remember, I don't support either one of them, either one of those parties. Greetings, Jackie says, hey, is it a double standard Oh, hey, it is a double standard. All the black men shaming Angela Reese. These guys are silent about Melania's photos. You mean Angel Reese? And Jackie also said sexism for media to ignore the alleged victim is Faraji and sensationalize Joy. We're going to talk about that tonight because I did notice that as well, Jackie, that there's a lot more people online, I should say, are pointing fingers at Joy. And according to the lawsuit, Joy isn't innocent. But I feel like not as many people are pointing fingers at Skip Bayless and Emmanuel Acho. So we'll get into all of that. Greetings, Hannah G says, I can't wait to hear Sabby take on Skip and Joy. I'll get into it. Shout out to Crom says, Sabby, you know, I love you, but I wish you'd admit to being on the take from Big Taco. LOL. JK, happy Taco Tuesday. It's interesting. You know, it is really cold here. Brutally cold. It's been like that the past couple of days in Massachusetts. And so I did not have tacos tonight. I had chili. This is so cold. And the air is dry as well. What's up, Eric Gray? Hey, Sabby, who in your opinion should be the next head coach for the New England Patriots? I don't know. I am disappointed Gerard Mayo was fired, but I'm not surprised. Our roster this year was not good. And I did not expect any coach this year to lead us to the playoffs. I just didn't expect that to happen because of the talent pool on the roster. That being said, I don't think Gerard Mayo should have been fired because of the talent pool on the roster, which he didn't select. People do have to understand that with Bill Belichick, it was a little bit different because he wasn't just the head coach. He was also the GM. And Gerard Mayo, not so much, just the head coach. So it's unfortunate it happened, but I'm not surprised. Rob Gronkowski was on a show, I think it was yesterday. I saw him on a sports show yesterday, and he was saying that he thought what happened to Gerard Mayo was very much unfair. So yeah, again, like if you're the GM and the head coach, then you have a lot more pull. But if you're just the head coach, you don't have as much pull when it comes to the talent roster, unfortunately. But I don't know, but they need to figure something out, right? What's up, Kaimi says, let's go. Roll that doobie-doo music. Greetings, Lawrence Johnson says, free Palestine. Shout out to Eric T. Red says, hey, all, here we go. Greetings, Joey says, booze who, folks? What's up, Joey? Greetings, ACAB says, listening while on the road doing deliveries. Oh, you must be DoorDash. You doing DoorDash or Grubhub maybe? And shout out to Samantha says, good evening, everyone. Greetings, Benny says, oh, okay, I'll just watch what I was watching later, and hi all. And shout out to Volvo says, hey, Cookie, what's up with you? Brian says, And greetings, Bad Wolf says, yay, I am on time. Yeah, so much to discuss tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Actually, let's go ahead and get into it. Dun, dun, dun. First and foremost, I want to give a shout out to everyone who is a Sabby patron. Let's go ahead and put those guys up on that screen. Yeah. Thank you so much to everyone who is a Sabby patron. If you are interested in being a patron, I have 5 categories: Ultimate, Sabinators. There's also a group called Sabsters. Maybe you heard of them. I don't know, but maybe you did. There are also Sabbies. Thank you guys so much. And last but definitely not least are members. Thank you guys. Appreciate you. All of their names are listed here. And you can also see their names scrolling across the bottom of the ticker there as well. I also want to give a shout out to new Sabby patrons. Over here, we call them newbies. Let's give it up for Michael Harrison. And I love this. After the fact, Zach. I love that name. Thank you guys so much. Really do appreciate all of you. Okie doke, folks. Let's go ahead and share that beautiful thumbnail and dive in. Again, tonight's theme is the system is fixed. Yeah. Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, we are discussing, oh boy, this is a big one. Kamala influencer upset. There is a story that has been released by Current Affairs about Kamala Harris paid influencers who apparently did not disclose that they were paid influencers. It's all being brought forward. I told you guys, I thought a lot of these people were paid. So we're going to get into that one. That's a good story. We're also going to discuss, if you have not heard by now, honey, Skip Bayless and Joy Taylor lawsuit. This is a big one. It appears a hairstylist from Fox Sports has filed a lawsuit against Skip Bayless, Joy Taylor, and I believe Emmanuel Acho is also mentioned in that lawsuit. We're going to get into all of that, ladies and gentlemen. I'm telling you, what's done in the dark will come to the light. And we'll say allegedly again, allegedly. We are also going to discuss, if you have not heard by now, ladies and gentlemen, this is a big one. We told you that there was pressure on Justin Trudeau. It is now official. He has announced that he is resigning. We're going to get into that. And where does this all, land with Trump's tariffs that he's threatening on China? Not on China, on Canada. I got China on the brain. And also, this idea that Trump wants to make Canada the 51st state. Well, Canada has responded, and they actually have another idea. This is interesting. I think you guys get a kick out of that one. So we're going to get into that story. And what does that mean for all of these current leaders in the West? Because it's not just Trudeau. Remember, President Macron is also being pushed to resign. So there is a change that is happening here, not just in the United States, but in the West in general. We're also discussing, and pay attention to this one because this could be coming to other cities soon, this New York City congestion tax that just started this year. I covered this last year and told you that this was going to make its way in 2025. And now it has officially started. I'm going to tell what that means for those of you that live in New York City. And also, there are other cities that are also looking at this as well. So if you don't live in New York, that doesn't mean that your city won't be next. We're going to get into that and talk about what that means for the workers, the working class. And last but not least, there is another story. And shout out to friend of the show, Roger Meadows, for this story. We got to talk about this. It is colleges ruining the labor force. And you may not think that's the case, but it did happen. It's still happening. And what does that mean for the current, college graduates or high school graduates today? We're going to get into that story as well. Again, the theme tonight is the system is fixed. If you just joined us, smash that like button. If you're new, don't forget to like, sub, and share like a Care Bear. Hey, hey, hey. Shout out to Samantha for being a Sabby member for 4 months. Sabby, you do such a great job. My daughter is always singing the doobie doobie doo, LOL. Thank you for all of your work. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you, Perry. Sabby, you saw the tweet where Dwight Howard of the NBA said he got threatened by the NBA for saying free Palestine. Funny thing, JB, my comrade, just sent it to me. He just sent me that tweet right before I went live. And I was like, yeah, I'm not surprised. Don't forget what happened to Kyrie Irving. Don't forget Jaylen Brown, who plays for the Boston Celtics, also ran into issues with the free Palestine. So I'm not surprised. Last I checked, I believe the NBA commissioner is also a Zionist. So see, you see who you're working for, right? All right. Yeah, he did. JB's in the chat. He said, yep, I did. Sure did. Yep. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's go ahead and get started with the first story. Go ahead and connect here. I'm going to pull up my type and see. Justin Trudeau. Oh my gosh. So about a week ago, I warned you that there was pressure on Justin Trudeau to resign. Now, this pressure was coming from, of course, the opposition party, but also it was coming from some members of his own party. They had reached a conclusion that they did not think that Justin Trudeau would be able to do a good job for the people of Canada during a Trump presidency. That's where some of it comes from. There are other issues as well. Of course, Chrystia Freeland also resigned. That was a big issue for some people. There was also the issue over the pandemic. Don't forget that Justin Trudeau threatened the truckers and said that he was going to freeze their assets unless they were to get back to work. Basically, there's a lot that has happened in Canada under Trudeau. So I felt like it was only a matter of time. So another leader in the West has fallen. First, it was Joe Biden. Then President Macron is also being pushed to resign. France is in a lot of trouble right now. And now we see Justin Trudeau. And is this a sign of things to come? So you see, it's not just happening in the US, it is happening globally with these leaders. Let's go ahead and get into this announcement here from Trudeau.
We're seeing Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau step up to the microphone now. Let's listen in.
Bon matin. Every morning I've woken up as Prime Minister. I've been inspired by the resilience, the generosity, and the determination of Canadians. It is the driving force of every single day I have the privilege of serving in this office. That is why, since 2015, I've fought for this country, for you, to strengthen and grow the middle class. Why we rallied to support each other through the pandemic, to advance reconciliation, to defend free trade on this continent, to stand strong with Ukraine and our democracy, and to fight climate change and get our economy ready for the future. We are at a critical moment in the world. You all know I'm a fighter. Every bone in my body has always told me to fight because I care deeply about Canadians, I care deeply about this country, and I will always be motivated by what is in the best interest of Canadians. And the fact is, despite best efforts to work through it, Parliament has been paralyzed for months.
Was it in the best interest of the Canadians when he decided to punish the truckers that were on strike? Was that in the best interest of the Canadians? I'm pretty sure most of the working class Canadians will probably say no.
After what has been the longest session of a minority parliament in Canadian history. That's why this morning I advised the Governor General that we need a new session of Parliament. She has granted this request, and the House will now be prorogued until March 24th. Over the holidays, I've also had a chance to reflect and have had long talks with my family about our future. Throughout the course of my career, any success I have personally achieved has been because of their support and with their encouragement. So last night over dinner, I told my kids about the decision that I'm sharing with you today. I intend to resign as party leader, as Prime Minister, after the party selects its next leader through a robust, nationwide, competitive process. Last night, I asked the President of the Liberal Party to begin that process. This country deserves a real choice in the next election, and it has become clear to me that if I'm having to fight internal battles, I cannot be the best option in that election.
So the internal battles that he's speaking of are members of his own party. So, yeah, I mean, this is a reality. If members of your own party want you out, chances are you got to get out. And that is what's happening right now. They are not happy with him.
A new Prime Minister and leader of the Liberal Party will carry its values and ideals into that next election. I'm excited to see the process unfold in the months ahead. We were elected for the third time in 2021 to strengthen the economy post-pandemic and advance Canada's interests in a complicated world. And that is exactly the job that I and we will continue to do for Canadians. Merci beaucoup, mes amis.
Thank you, Prime Minister. We'll now go to questions, starting with Laurence Martin, Radio-Canada.
Bonjour, Monsieur Trudeau. Vous vouliez le faire, ce combat contre Pierre Poilievre, des batailles
And then they go
internes,
to
il y en a dans votre
questions.
parti depuis plusieurs mois déjà.
So
Est-ce que vous
just a reminder of, they're doing French as well because of, Ottawa is in the French province part of Canada. So he has to do both, like English and French. But anyway, let's just get to something really quick here, because this is very telling, ladies and gentlemen. I think we are really starting to see a change politically across the globe. I mean, you had Joe Biden, who was in this race, and then Kamala Harris took over the nomination, lost to Donald Trump. Donald Trump is going back in the White House after losing to Joe Biden in 2020. So there's that. And you have the parliament in France plead no contest, a no confidence vote, pushing Macron to leave. They want Macron gone. Don't forget, the people rose up in the streets and protested against Macron about increasing the retirement age. So don't forget about that. And of course, the Gaza issue. And now you see Justin Trudeau is announcing his resignation as well. So most likely in Canada, what you are going to see happen is it appears that the Conservatives are probably going to take over now, because Trudeau, he's been there in position a couple of years, most likely, considering, because the Conservative Party there in Canada are against Trudeau. They wanted him out, but then also members of his own party, some of them also wanted him out. So the next Prime Minister of Canada will probably be someone from the Conservative Party. So just keep that in mind, the shift that we're seeing, not just in the United States, but also in the West, when we look at the global strategy here. I just want to move forward a little bit here when he answers that question.
I'm not somebody who recoils easily before such enormous challenges before the party and the country.
Yeah, they're translating because he's speaking in French.
Because
I
I'm
think.
doing this job in the interests of Canadians and Canada, and to defend the democracy which I cherish. But I realize that I cannot be the leader in the next elections.
All right, I want to bring in CNN's Paula Newton in Ottawa. We also have Jeff Zeleny standing by for us in West Palm Beach. Paula, first to you, though. I mean, here you have Justin Trudeau stepping down, resigning as the leader of the Liberal Party in Canada. He has been at the helm there for 11 years. Is this a case of Trudeau jumping before he's pushed?
Absolutely, 100%. And he basically said so in the last few moments there that we heard from him. He said, look, I can't possibly fight what will be an incredibly difficult election campaign for a government that's almost a decade old if I have to continually fight these internal battles. Now, look, there have been a long list of scandals as well as some achievements that he outlined there. But again, so many members of his own government coming to him and saying, we don't believe that you can beat Conservative Party leader Pierre Poilievre in the next election, an election that has to be held by the end of the year. And Pam, as I've been saying all morning, stop me when this sounds familiar. This really leaves his party in a tough squeeze. The polls already indicate that they are more than 20 percentage points behind, and now they're going to have this succession battle, and it will be rough with a lot of different people putting their hat in the ring. In the meantime, you have President-elect Trump coming into office, I don't have to remind you, in 2 weeks, threatening 25% tariffs on all Canadian goods imported into the United States. It is a tall order by any stretch. He will stay to be a so-called caretaker prime minister, but also Parliament will not be sitting. And that'll be interesting because it means that no government business can basically get done. It's really just governing on an emergency basis, if you will. Again, a lot of moving parts here. I will add to all of this. Canada just assumed the G7 presidency at the beginning of 2025. G7 meeting supposed to happen in Alberta, Canada in June. A lot on the plate here. And the Prime Minister really putting a personal touch on this, saying that, look, I had a discussion with my 3 children at dinner last night, and that's when I made the decision, something we all know he did not want to do.
Yeah. So does this remind you of anything, you guys? Like, remember when Democrat leadership came to Joe Biden and told him, look, the numbers are showing that you can't win. You can't beat Donald Trump. Doesn't this sound familiar? This is what happened also to Justin Trudeau. They're telling him like, yeah, it's not looking good for you, bruh. You're not going to be able to beat Pierre. So we're seeing similarities here. Some people may say maybe it was because of Israel. Maybe it was because Justin Trudeau, or one of the reasons that he did come out late, but he did come out later and said that, okay, I think we need to stop sending the arms to Israel. Maybe, I don't know. I mean, people were upset with Justin Trudeau. And by people, I mean, I'm talking about the workers. Workers were upset with Justin Trudeau during the trucker strike. I mean, they've been upset with him over different issues. Of course, they were upset over Gaza as well. But we are seeing similarities here where two leaders, was Biden, and then, of course, it went to Kamala Harris, but still, she was a part of the Biden-Harris administration. And now you're seeing Justin Trudeau, similar thing, where there is a big shift that has happened. And members of their parties did not think that they did their job well. So that brings up the Donald Trump question. Because one of the things that they were saying about Justin Trudeau is that they did not believe that he would be able to fight back against Donald Trump. Now, Donald Trump is saying that he plans to implement 25% tariffs on Canada if they do not fix the border situation. And they don't believe that Justin Trudeau would be able to answer that call. Let's get into this part here. And someone was asking me about Canada being the 51st state. No, I do not. It wouldn't benefit. I don't think it would benefit Canada if they became the 51st state, because that's really going to change a lot of things in Canada. Don't forget, in Canada, they do have universal health care. We don't. So I know sometimes Canadians may say, well, you guys have better doctors, or our health system isn't as great as you think it is. I know sometimes they may say that, but when they have to pay these healthcare premiums that we have to pay in this country, I don't think they would be too happy about that. I got to tell you. So let's go into this part here from News Nation about the tariffs and like what Justin Trudeau's resignation means for the U.S.-Canada relations. Listen to this.
Trudeau has been facing growing pressure from his own party, including from some who reportedly believe he is not equipped to handle Donald Trump. And just days after the president-elect announced plans to impose 25% tariffs on all products from Canada, Trudeau visited Trump at Mar-a-Lago. The president-elect, meantime, is pushing for his upcoming sentencing in his hush money case to be dismissed. Let's get out to News Nation's Robert Sherman live for us outside of Mar-a-Lago there in Florida. Robert, let's start with Canada's Prime Minister. He made that announcement about an hour ago.
Yeah, big announcement here, Nicole, and that announcement effectively puts a cap on these conversations that you've seen taking place in recent weeks between the Canadian Prime Minister and President-elect Donald Trump. It's been a consistent back and forth since Election Day. You've heard the jabs where the president-elect has said that he'd be prepared to make Canada the 51st state. You've heard the threats from the president-elect saying that he's prepared to impose tariffs. And he's doubled down on those threats once again, saying that he wants tariffs on Canada, Mexico, and China to effectively be the cornerstone of rebuilding America. This is what he put out on Truth Social, saying, quote, "We must secure our border, unleash American energy, and renew the Trump tax cuts, which were the largest in history, but we will make it even better. No tax on tips. It will all be made up with tariffs and much more from countries that have taken advantage of the U.S. for years." He clarified some of those comments during an interview this morning. Here's what he said.
We have a situation with Canada that's very interesting. People at first smiled when I mentioned the concept. We lose $200 billion a year. So we don't need their cars. We can make the cars here. We have everything. We have all of the gas and oil and everything that you need in terms of energy. We have more than they do. We have everything. We don't need anything from God.
Yeah, so I'm not down with making Canada the 51st state. I don't think they're down with that either. I did see a statement from Justin Trudeau on Twitter earlier, and he was saying that no, like, no. So who is going to replace him? Let's get into this part of the conversation because he's not leaving right away. Who will replace Justin Trudeau? And this is the big question I think a lot of people have, and it talks here. It says Trudeau said Monday his plans to stay on as prime minister until a new party leader is chosen. So this could be a couple of months from now. He could not recover after the finance minister, Chrystia Freeland, who she decided to leave. And this part here, what is next for Canada? A new Canadian leader is unlikely to be named before Trump is inaugurated on January the 20th. So as it stands right now, I mean, we're looking at he's still going to be there for a couple of months. When will there be a new prime minister? The Liberals need to elect a new leader before Parliament resumes March 24th, because all three opposition parties say they will bring down the Liberal government in a no confidence vote at the first opportunity, which could trigger an election. The new leader might not be prime minister for long. So we're looking at someone that's in like a, interim position. Maybe they're just like the interim prime minister. A spring election would very likely favor the opposing Conservative Party. And that's what they're looking at right now, folks, in Canada. Now, the part about making Canada a 51st state, there has been a response from Canada. I thought you guys get a kick out of this. Check this out. They actually have a different suggestion. Instead of them joining us, they're asking, how about some of you join Canada? Listen.
Hey, Donald, have we got a deal for you? You think we want to be the 51st state? Nah, but maybe California would like to be the 11th province. How about it? California? Oregon, Washington, you've got geography in common with us. And not only that, we've already got a carbon trading system between California and Quebec. We've got some strong alliances on our west coast from British Columbia. There's been a lot of academic papers on the idea of Cascadia. So California, Governor Newsom, and Washington State, Jay Inslee, and newly elected Governor of Oregon, Tina Kotek. How about it? Want to put a referendum to your citizens? Because this is what you deal. Have we got a deal for you? This is what you get. Free health care. Universal free health care. No more one-year-olds who suddenly fall off the Medicaid list and their parents are in the news because they're trying to do a GoFundMe so they can get their daughter to a doctor. Universal free health care. And guess what? Those gun laws that your Congress is too afraid to pass because of the national gun lobby, we already got our strict gun laws.
Oh my God. I don't know. You may not have to twist too many arms for the healthcare. She said, how about we get Oregon and California and Washington State? And hey, Canada, can I remind you, there are other states on your border too. It's not just the states on the West Coast. But she said, hey, you guys want to join us? You get free healthcare. Oh my gosh. But yes, so Justin Trudeau has decided to announce that he will be resigning, and looks like Conservatives are set to take over in Canada. Things have changed. Things have definitely changed. Let's go to some of the comments here, ladies and gentlemen. VH Sandwich says, and he's another leader who has had to step down, who's a homie of Zelensky. The curse is real. That's a good point. Ravina, I don't know one First Nation person that has anything good to say about him, and they mostly go off about him. Yeah. Shout out to Joey Peltier, who's been a member for 18 months. To Justin Trudeau, by colonizer, signed people of the First Nation. Hashtag land back, hashtag honor the treaties. JB says the liberal part of neoliberalism has been rejected in the West. This is a big shift indeed. That's what's happening. Ashura says, yep, Sabby Sabs Trudeau and all of Parliament are going to be on vacation till March and April until they find a new leader and get paid. Smoo says, no, thanks. I'm happy for my universal health care. Sula says Canada should dump the dollar and join BRICS. Ooh, that'll really piss off Trump. And thank you, Roger. Hey, New York touches Canada too. We need healthcare also. That's what I'm saying. I'm like, there's all these other states that also touch Canada, not just, the West Coast states. But interesting. People were laughing at that on social media. They were saying, like, don't twist our arm. Don't twist our arm. Okay. We're going to move on to the next story. Doing good time. Let's go to, oh, did I do this? Sorry, I clicked on the wrong thing. Okay. We're going to go to the next story. This is one like, so if you care about like the workforce, if you care about labor, and you've been wondering why things are not as good as they were when your parents were your age or your grandparents were your age with the labor force, I think you're about to find out why. You see, friend of the show, Roger Meadows, he sent this to me, and I think this needs to be discussed. How college destroyed the labor market. Now, you may want to pause and say, huh? What? What are you talking about? That doesn't make any sense. Actually, it does. Because you see, fam, the reason why we have some of the problems that we have in the job market today is because of some of the things that happen with the university system. We're actually going to start with LBJ. What seemed like a good thing at the time turned out to not be a great thing. Let's get started here. Again, this is how college destroyed the labor market. Check this out.
Beginning with Lyndon B. Johnson's Higher Education Act of 1965, which aimed to further democratize access to college by expanding federal financial aid to make higher education accessible to more Americans. The belief truly was that as a college degree almost guaranteed economic mobility, graduates would have no problem repaying the loans. But institutions quickly took advantage of this and began raising tuition, as students were now backed by the federal government. As a result, according to the National Center of Education Statistics, for the 1970 to 71 academic year, the average in-state tuition and fees for 1 year at a public nonprofit university was $394. By the 2020-2021 academic year, that amount jumped to $10,560. And
pause. Everybody look at this graph for just a second. Do you see what happened? So, and this is a warning that I've been giving to people. Whenever you push for some type of policy that is going to help the people, which I definitely support, you always have to have an answer to the way that the corporations are going to respond. People still call them schools. I told you before, we need to start calling them businesses. Because what they did after LBJ said, oh, let's offer federal financial aid. This way, people who are coming from families that can't afford to send them to college will be able to take out student loans to attend college. Now, back then, student loans were a lot cheaper than they are now. So just keep that in mind. So the business response to that is, okay, we'll just increase the tuition. This is another thing that people have brought up about Andrew Yang's UBI. When Andrew Yang says we need universal basic income, people ask the question, what is stopping businesses from increasing their prices after people get a universal basic income? What's stopping landlords from increasing the rent after we get a universal basic income? So what would be a way to answer that, right? To have rent stabilization. That way landlords can't do that. To have some type of law in place. That way businesses cannot increase all these prices because people are now getting $1,000 a month. So the colleges, which is a business, became pretty smart. And they said, wait a minute. Now that we have more people applying to these colleges, that means we have to spend more time going through college applications. And now there are going to be more students in the classroom. So we're just going to go ahead and increase the tuition. This is how they've been able to limit the applicant pool, right? The more the government gives out, or the more federal aid that the government gives out, the more these universities increase their prices. Let's continue on so you can see how this affected the job market.
Increase of 2,580%. And as tuition rapidly increased, the importance of a higher education had taken root in American culture, and coincided with the largest generation in American history facing yet another national conflict, the Vietnam War. Prior to the draft, the college entry rate of young men had increased from 54% in 1963 to 62% in 1968. Of the 2.5 million enlisted men who served during Vietnam, 80% came from poor or working class families, with the same ratio only having a high school education, as the draft allowed full-time students and graduates legal deferment. College campuses became centers for protests against the war, with professors and faculty beginning to criticize American policy, causing another ideology to form around education, led by California's newly elected governor and future president, Ronald Reagan. Just a few months after his election, Reagan publicly emphasized impending budget concerns, warning that high taxes would lead California toward an economic collapse, specifically in regards to the burden taxpayers faced with higher education. At the time, the University of California had been offering free tuition to California residents since its formation in 1868.
Pause right there. That's another thing I want to mention. People forget about that. When you hear people like Bernie Sanders say, well, we should have free colleges in the United States, don't forget that in California, at once upon a time, it was free for those who were in-state applicants. And I still say that to this day. Like, why do you, if you live in Massachusetts, why do you have to pay like $15,000 a semester for tuition at the University of Massachusetts? Why? You don't have to pay tuition to go through K through 12 public school. So why do you have to pay tuition to go to the University of Massachusetts if you're in Massachusetts? Let me know. I never understood this. Never understood it. Let's continue.
But in recent years, it had also become a national center of protests against the Vietnam War. Under the headline of solving California's budget crisis, Reagan proposed the introduction of tuition fees and began cutting public funding to universities by 20%. However, this was largely in pursuit of dismantling the resistance forming at public universities, with Reagan's education advisor, Roger A. Freeman, stating, "We are in danger of producing an educated proletariat. That's dynamite. We have to be selective of who we allow to go through higher education." Shortly after, every public institution in the nation followed Reagan's initiative. In 1966, American students took out $73 million in student loans. By 1981, when Reagan took office as president, that figure had grown to $7.8 billion.
Does everybody see that significant increase there? So I want people to understand how we got here.
By 1983, the U.S. Department of Education issued a nation at risk, stating the educational foundation of our society are presently being eroded by a rising tide of mediocrity and threatens our very future as a nation. This open letter to the American people called for a complete reform of the public education systems, prioritizing more rigorous and measurable standards. Technical programs such as shop class were no longer seen as a priority in this newfound pursuit of higher education, and soon became reserved for the school's so-called troubled students or those not suited for college.
And why is that, ladies and gentlemen? Why is it that these skills are at these, and people call them vocational schools, or alternative schools, but they're known as the schools that the kids who don't or have behavioral issues or don't do well at your regular K through 12 public school, they send them to those types of schools. When those skills, am I going this way or that way? Those skills should actually be taught at every school. Like it shouldn't, like my parents told me, like when they were growing up, they had shop class, like they took wood shop. And again, these were free skills that were taught to you in high school and middle school. So you knew how to build with your hands, like home ec. Actually, I had home ec in middle school, but then they got rid of that not too long after I took it. But as time went by, K through 12, they started to cut these budgets and they started to remove these programs from those schools. And that's why if you look around today, a lot of people don't know how to build anything with their hands. So these things did change over time. Now it's like you got to pay to get these skills.
This not only completely altered the nation's perspective of vocational schooling, completely ruining the balance between white-collar and blue-collar work in the labor force, it was also hurting the nation's education levels. Students who graduated from high school in the 80s learned 1.25 grade levels less than graduates in 1967. Today, according to the National Assessment of Educational Progress, math skills for 13-year-olds is at the same level it was in 1990, with readers scoring worse than in 1971. Ultimately, this pursuit in college preparedness led to high school just becoming a societal checkpoint, rather than a platform that provided students with marketable skills.
High schools no longer were preparing students with the skills that they needed to go out into the real world. Now, in order to get those jobs, you would have to go to a trade school or you would have to go to a university to get those skills, to get those jobs. When if you were back in my parents' day, you were taught those skills while you were in high school. You didn't have to pay for it. So this is how the labor force, how college has had an impact on the labor force, not in a positive way. I want you to think about those entry-level jobs for just a second. And this is something I noticed when I graduated from undergrad. That never made any sense to me, but later on, I understood how it worked. How do you have an entry-level job that is entry-level, but requires you to have 3 to 5 years experience? Let me know. How is it entry-level if they want you to have 3 to 5 years experience and you just graduated from college or high school? You see, that was another way to limit the applicant pool. That's another way to weed people out. Because now you don't have to go through 500 resumes. Now you maybe only have to go through 100 resumes. And sometimes they would pivot from 3 to 5 years experience or a bachelor's degree. I'm talking about jobs that didn't require a college degree before. Why do you need a bachelor's degree for an administrative assistant position? I'll wait. Why? They train you. I was an administrative assistant. They trained you. Why do you need a bachelor's degree for that? We're talking about jobs that some of our grandparents, maybe even some of our parents did without a college degree, graduated from high school, got like a secretary. I think back then they were called secretaries. Like nowadays it's administrative assistant or executive assistant. They get fancy with the title, but same jazz. But you know, they taught you these skills. And so you're like, okay, I'm going to go apply for the secretary job and with no college degree. So why do you need a bachelor's degree to become an administrative assistant today? So do you see what is happening? What has happened over time is that they have increased the requirements for entry-level positions that back in the day, our parents and our grandparents could have gotten those jobs without a degree. So now you have to go to college just to get that entry-level job and to get those full-time benefits. But if you took out student loans, you're already in a little bit of debt that you got to pay back. And guess what? That administrative assistant job doesn't pay enough for you to pay off those student loans. Now you got to go get a second job. Let's continue on a little bit more. I think I want to fast forward to did I want to go to this one? Oh, this part right here. The federal government halted trading programs. I want to get to that part. Here we go.
On a federal level. In 1979, the Comprehensive Employment and Training Act, which provided job training for economically disadvantaged, unemployed, and those underemployed, had over $16 billion, or $69 billion when adjusted for inflation, in funding. Today, that original number, without being adjusted for inflation, has fallen by over 66%, with all federal employment and training programs having a combined $20 billion in funding. With the massive reduction of training programs on both a federal and corporate level, as well as the complete dismantling of entry-level positions and a national disdain for vocational schooling, college became society's one-stop shop for education and the skill sets needed for the modern workforce. And if you couldn't afford the increasing tuition, you're just out of luck.
You were just out of luck. And one more thing I want to bring up as well. We're going to fast forward to why they're not hiring these college graduates. Another thing I want to bring up as well. So you go to college to get the skills and to get that degree, to get what is going to be for a lot of people, these entry-level positions, but you're still not receiving a salary that is comparable to what your parents would have received at that time or what your grandparents may have received at that time. So that says a lot for the younger people today, the Gen Z people, even my group, millennials, Roger Meadows. I'm not going to forget about you Gen X peeps either. That says a lot like for all of us that are a part of those generations, because the reality is we've been playing catch up, and you try to sit down and try to figure out why. And most of this is not on us. Most of this are the things that happened along the way before we were even born. Now let's go to this part right here. Why these employers purposely are not hiring the college grads. Listen to this.
Further from the truth. Out of a study of 800 hiring managers, 58% stated recent college graduates are underprepared for the workforce, just in entry-level positions. And according to Scott Detman, CEO of Avencia, a US-based career matching service for new graduates, hiring managers, instead of taking corrective action, have increased experience requirements by over 20% in just the last 5 years. And while I've made a plethora of videos going in great detail of how most hiring managers are just completely full of it, what we are seeing at large is that a college education truly is not granting the skill sets and education needed for the modern workforce, especially for how much it's costing. Nearly 47% of academic workforce is now made up of part-time, non-tenure track faculty, with 2/3 of them working as adjuncts, often juggling multiple jobs to make ends meet and ultimately diluting the quality of education. A survey of tenured professors showed 47% agreed that academic standards had declined, 33% had a reduced course rigor, and 37% openly admitted to inflating grades.
So we can go ahead and stop that right about there, because we're going to fast forward into what this means for younger people today. So again, I said they're businesses. These universities are businesses. They found a way of hiring people more cheaply and increasing tuition along the way as well. Instead of hiring all these tenure track professors, let's hire adjunct professors that don't get benefits, and we just charge them per credit that they teach. So if you get you teach 6 credits, you get paid for 6 credits. No health insurance, no dental, forget that jazz. If you want to take vacation, it's not paid vacation. I've been warning people about this gig economy and how we have gotten to this level. But make no mistake, ladies and gentlemen, college has actually, all along the way, college has ruined the labor markets, because college made entry-level positions no longer really entry-level. That's how you go from entry-level with 0 to 1 year experience to entry-level positions that require 3 to 5 years experience or a bachelor's degree. Most people are not going to have the 3 to 5 years experience if they don't already have the skill set. So that means they're going to opt towards those that have the bachelor's degree. And then they know that you don't really have any experience because you just graduated from undergrad. So they have the excuse to pay you less. This is how this all has worked over the years. And I want to bring you to this story here. Shout out to Case Study QB, because we're talking about where young people are now. Young people struggling to meet the milestones of adulthood. Listen to this.
The boss singing about growing up. But what about millennials? Moving out, owning a home, building a family. These used to be the markers for adulthood. But many of the 30 and 40 somethings of today say the standards of previous generations no longer feel attainable. According to the Institute for Family Studies, 1/3 of today's young people will never marry. Adults under 50 who say they are unlikely to ever have children has climbed by 10% in the last 6 years. A Wall Street Journal essay by Rachel Wolf raises the question, what happens when a whole generation never grows up? Wolf writes that amid steep declines in homeownership, marriage, and birth rates, economists have long been warning that young people are struggling to meet the milestones of adulthood. Although some 30-somethings are consciously choosing a less traditional path, many say these goals are simply out of reach.
The goals are simply out of reach, and part of the reason is because of what I just told you. Another part of it is because of capitalism, right? It's the capitalist system that allows those universities to increase the tuition the way that they did after LBJ decided to let's go forward with these federal student loans to give more opportunities for other people to go to college that would not be able to afford to do so. So the capitalist response to that was, let's increase the tuition. So just keep that in mind. And these kids today, it is true. Now it's titled What Happens When a Whole Generation Never Grows Up. It doesn't mean that they didn't grow up. But what it is saying is that these goals that our parents and our grandparents were able to accomplish just everyday, part of life, these kids are not able to accomplish it. And that is because of what I just told you. College ruined the labor market. So what are these kids supposed to do? Where are they supposed to get the money for a down payment for a home when the home prices continue to increase and they're not paid a living salary, but they went to school because they needed to have the degree just to get that job in the first place. And they're underpaid and they have student loans. We have dug ourselves into a hole in this country. Can't speak for other countries. Some of these other countries, if you want to bring in the H-1B visa situation, as we said before, what did I tell you? A lot of these countries have free college. So if you're coming from a country that has free college and you didn't have to pay tuition, things are going to be a little bit different for you. This is a little bit different. So we have to point to this. We also have to point to another damn thing. Those of us that were around for the 2008 housing crisis and were trying to find jobs during that time, that was also another time where entry-level jobs increase the experience that was required. And the reason why they did that is because the people who would have been maybe at that point where they could retire and move on, they decided to hold on to their jobs during the 2008 housing crisis. So those people who were graduating from college at that time that were trying to get those entry-level jobs that I was just telling you about weren't able to get a lot of those jobs because people who were in those positions stayed in those positions instead of moving on because they did not want to risk not having employment during the 2008 housing crisis. We are looking at generation after generation that has been trying to claw their way out of this hole. People need to know about this.
Joining me now is Richard Reeves. He's president of the American Institute for Boys and Men and author of Boys and Men, Why the Modern Male is Struggling, Why It Matters, and What to Do About It. Richard, nice to see you again. I cited some data. Is there one data point top of your mind that you think kind of sums up the issue that we're here to discuss?
Yeah, for me, it's the fact that men in their 30s and 40s now who don't have a college degree, half of them don't have children in their home. And so this move towards having men in homes that don't have children in them, particularly for working class men, it's like a very, very big change. And for me, Rachel's essay and data you've cited, it speaks to a change, an important change, which is the fact that these milestones aren't just being reached later, but for many people, they're not being reached at all. But we've gone from later, which in some ways can be a good thing, to never, which is very rarely a good thing. Like taking a bit more time to get educated, take your time to form a family, maybe get yourself financially settled, that's arguably a good thing. But that's not what's happening now. What's happening now is that these milestones, for many people, are just not being reached at all.
Very important point. There was a movie a couple years ago with Matthew McConaughey and Sarah Jessica Parker. What's her name, right? Sarah Jessica Parker. Yeah. There was a movie called Failure to Launch. And at that time, they were talking about the failure to launch phenomenon where these kids, they go to college and then they come right back home, but they never leave the parents' home. They get really comfortable there. You know, it's one thing if that's something that you're doing by choice, but more and more people are not doing that by choice. They're doing it because they can't afford it, right? They can't afford to get their own home. They can't afford to have an apartment without 4 other roommates. I mean, it's freaking ridiculous. You can talk to people even here in Massachusetts that were able to buy a home for $50,000 and they didn't have college degree. Now you have a college degree, you have student loan debt. The houses are $600,000, $700,000. The houses down the street from me, and I know they're crazy. They're trying to sell these houses for $800,000. I'm like, for what? For what? So it's unattainable. It's unattainable at this point. And when I look at the blue collar workforce, this is why I encourage people, young people, if you're listening, listen up. If you want to go to college, but you don't have the financial means to do so, and you would have to take out student loans in order to go. If you are not going into a profession where you're going to make at least, and I say minimum, at least $100,000 a year, don't do it. Go to trade school, go to community college, pick up a trade. You can become a dental hygienist while they still can before this stuff gets automated, because we don't know what's going to happen. There were people that used to work at the toll booth. They used to take your money and they give you a ticket. They were replaced with machines. So we don't know what's going to happen. But my advice to you is, if you are not going into a profession where you're going to make at least $100,000 a year and you have to take out student loans, don't do it. You are better off going to community college and, let's say, become a dental hygienist. That's only 2 years, 2 years of schooling. Last time I checked, they were paying them $60,000 to start. You could do that. I am not going to tell you to go into the military, despite what some may do. Or the other one is the trade schools. The trade schools. Ladies, they need women welders. Believe it or not, they pay women welders more than they'll pay the men. They need you. You can go into welding. If you want to go into construction, carpentry, electrical, like, I'm just thinking of all the things that you need someone to do that you probably can't do yourself. Those types of jobs, those trade jobs, go into those if you know that you're going to end up in a tremendous amount of debt and you're going in a profession that's not going to teach or pay much. And speaking of teach, that means if you want to be a teacher and you know you can't go to college unless you end up with student loan debt, pick a different position, because teachers don't make shit. As someone that worked in education, I can tell you they don't make crap. It is a waste of your time. You don't want the headache. You are not just a teacher. You're a teacher, a babysitter, a counselor, and everything else. And everything else. So if you want to go, like, try to go into those fields. Someone in the chat mentioned pilots. That's another one. If you like to fly, you want to be a pilot, again, these are still cheaper than what you're going to have to deal with if you take out all those student loans.
Okay, you anticipated my next question, which is this necessarily bad news? Might some of these individuals be happier in making a conscious choice?
Yeah, that's the $1,000,000 question. If you were to look at this data and say, look, this is people that have got lots of choice, they've intentionally said, look, I don't want to get married, I don't want to have kids, so maybe I don't want to do what my parents did, then you just say, sure enough, like, the old people can roll their eyes and say, oh, young people today. But that's just them doing it differently. But that's not what the data suggests. The data suggests that actually men in particular still want to have children. They still want to get married. They still want to form families. It's just that for some reason they're not able to. And I think that's a mixture of, it speaks a bit to the segment you just had with James Carville. It's a mixture, as always, of economics and culture. This is partly just, young men in particular feeling like they're not doing as well economically as they need to. But it's also, I think, has to be said, that there's a growing gap in many ways between young men and young women. We see that in politics, we see that in culture. And one thing I think we know for sure now is that a battle of the sexes is not great for the dating market. And you're seeing some of that playing out now. A third of men under 30 are not dating. 24% of men still living at home in their 20s, as you just pointed out. And so we're seeing some.
But he doesn't get to the real issue. The real issue is they can't afford it. They can't afford it. That's why. Like, he's trying to say, oh, well, these assertive men, they just can't find and no, the real issue is they can't afford it. So in all his research that he did and his book that he wrote, it's too expensive. Miss Kiwi knows exactly. It's too expensive to have kids. That's the thing. So people may want to, but can they afford to? Right. So not everybody can. And, you know, I've spoken to, like, a lot of my students were PhD and master's students, and they just couldn't afford it. Like, and that's just the reality. It's not that everybody says they don't want to. Some don't want to, but the reality is a lot of people can't afford it. So this is why I always bring up again worker cooperatives, because if college is ruining the labor force, that means in order for you as a worker to get back some type of power, it means that starting a worker cooperative instead of choosing to go work for the man is going to be the better option, depending on what profession you're going into. Marco came onto the show a while back. He started a worker co-op for a tech company. He started a tech company with a group of friends, and it's a worker co-op. So we can talk more and more about that on this show, because I really encourage people. We really have to. That is one of the ways, and it's a nonviolent way, that you can push back against the capitalist system, is through worker cooperatives. Crazy times, folks. Crazy times. Let's go ahead and go to some of the comments here in the chat. Thank you for the super sticker, FX Trader. Dwayne says, gasp, bite your tongue, Sabby. The Democrats say the working class has it great. Maybe that's why Trump won, LOL. Baby Ethernet says, without merit scholarship, most students are stuck paying $10K to $20K a year for the least expensive colleges. There you go. And Albat Witch says, Lyndon Johnson was worth more than 15 million at his time, about 100 million in today's money, but I'm sure he wasn't a corrupt POS or anything. FM said Judge Joe Brown seems to forget he got free tuition at UCLA. Ooh, that's a good point, FM. Mama says, I'm learning lots of things from Sabby. Good. That is my goal. The Oracle says this nation was designed to function as a plantation, with education being restricted to the white elite and manual labor and trades to the poor and Black poor. Thank you, Stephanie. Preach, Sabby. I'm trying. Tabitha said, right, and older generations had a better standard of living than we do with less education. Bingo. Bingo. Itoli says, WAPO, Washington Post, is laying off dozens of employees whose jobs will likely be replaced by AI. And that's another thing. That's another one. Thank you, New York Varsity. Must have 3 to 5 years of experience, bachelor's required, master's preferred. You got it. You got it. Yeah. You know what I mean? Giorgio resume, Old Navy salary. There it is. Roger says, thank you. Knew you'd love that, Sab. Let's get Damon Cassidy on. I can try. Dreamwalker says, do we still pay for people to go to school here from other countries? So the way it works with international students, undergrad students, master's students, they have to prove that their parents can pay for those years of tuition before they are admitted here. So if someone applied for undergrad at like BU or whatever, and they're applying from China, their family has to prove that they can pay for all 4 years of them attending at BU. You see, they don't get financial aid. They don't qualify for it. So a lot of the international students that come to college in the US, their parents have the money to send them here. Now, when it comes to the PhD programs, they do give out fellowships. When I was at MIT, they gave out fellowships and research assistantships to those students. Those are basically grants or stipends a lot of times. And then later on, they'd get with a research team, and that faculty member's research team would take care of their stipend. But other than that, they have to prove that they can pay to come here. And thank you, Janice. Companies no longer offer on-the-job training because it's less expensive for them to demand a degree instead, which increases their stock dividends. It's a good one, Janice. That is a good one. Hey, hey, hey. All right. Thank you guys so much. Smash the like button if you haven't done so. If you're new, don't forget to like, sub, and share like a Care Bear. And we are moving on, ladies and gentlemen, to this explosive Fox story. Jesus Christ. Oh, man, people can't keep their hands to them damn self. People can't keep the hands. Okay, this story is a doozy. We're going to go through part of the story through an article. We're going to look at an article for part of it, and the rest, we're going to go to Law and Crime Network. Okay, so a little bit of article, a little bit of video. But to make a long story short, apparently a hairstylist at Fox Sports has filed a lawsuit against Skip Bayless, Joy Taylor, who are both sports commentators, Emmanuel Acho, who is also a sports commentator, former professional athlete. And I also talked about him before on the show because he was going around the country doing this type of tour with, what's her name? Noah Tishby, Zionist woman. He was doing that kind of thing. You also know him from those YouTube videos, Conversations with a Black Man. You guys know what I'm talking about. He's also mentioned in this lawsuit, and also the executive director. This story is wild and crazy. Let's go ahead and get into it. Fox, Skip Bayless, others sued on 14 counts, including sexual battery. This story is wild. Again, we got to say alleged, okay? Because ain't nobody coming for me. A former Fox Sport hairstylist alleges in a lawsuit that a network executive used his position to sexually harass women, as well as that Skip Bayless touched her inappropriately and propositioned her for sex. Her name is Nushin Faraji, who says she worked at Fox Sports from 2012 through last August, made a series of allegations in a 42-page lawsuit obtained by Front Office Sports. Fox Sports, FS1, FS2, Fox Sports EVP, Charlie Dixon, Bayless, and FS1 host Joy Taylor are listed as defendants in the lawsuit. So she is not just suing those individuals, she's also suing the network. So this is messy, fam. This is messy. Let's go on. In the suit that was filed on Friday in LA, Faraji alleges that Dixon, the head of content for FS1, grabbed her buttocks at a birthday party in West Hollywood. When she relayed the encounter to Joy Taylor, the Fox host allegedly told her to get over it, according to the suit. So, if that happened, if that indeed happened, I have to say, because Joy Taylor, I would sincerely hope that if a woman came to you and told you that she was groped by the head of content, executive director, who's the head of content at the company that you all work for, I would hope that you wouldn't respond with "get over it." Surely you wouldn't tell that to another woman. Let's continue. The lawsuit seeks class action status on behalf of Faraji and other non-exempt Fox employees working in California over the past 4 years. Faraji seeks unspecified monetary damages and a jury trial. She's asking for a trial. So this can be pretty embarrassing for Skip Bayless and all of them, because this isn't one of like those, it isn't like a civil case where let's just negotiate behind closed doors, give me some money and I'll go about my business. She is asking for a jury trial. Here we go. After working on the Undisputed Morning Show that was starring Bayless, the suit alleges he began giving Faraji lingering hugs and kisses on the cheek while putting his body against hers and pressing against her boobs. The single mother alleges she repeatedly told Bayless she was not interested in him and did not date at work. She also claims she told Bayless she was suffering from ovarian cancer after developing issues with her left ovary in an effort to halt his advances. So this is someone who was also dealing with an illness at the time. For the people asking, why didn't she just quit? Let's go on. Instead, Bayless became more aggressive over the years, according to the lawsuit. He allegedly offered Faraji $1.5 million to have sex with him. Ladies in the back, this is the one part that really gives me pause. What guy offers $1.5 million to his coworker to have sex? Anybody? This is just bizarre to me. Skip Bayless with all the money that he has. By the way, Skip Bayless is married. But Skip Bayless with all the money that he has, like, he could have went to the Playboy Mansion. He could have went anywhere. He could have picked up some girl somewhere. I don't know. But to go to your employee and say, I'll give you $1.5 million if you just sleep with me. Allegedly. Let's continue. What? This is so wrong, Red. I'm not going to say it. I'm going to move on. Oh, my God. Let's go on here. Approximately 1 week later, Mr. Bayless made another advance at Miss Faraji. Miss Faraji responded, Skip, stop, you have a wife. Mr. Bayless responded, aren't you Muslim? Doesn't your dad have 3 to 4 wives? Oh, no, he did not. Oh, no, he didn't. So now he's using your Muslim card. So he's like, your culture would accept this anyway. Allegedly. This is insane. Like, if this is all true, this is insane. This is insane. Oh, my God. Miss Faraji responded that her father was dead. And when Mr. Bayless looked taken aback, she made an excuse to leave. Big Sid said Skip is an idiot. Yeah, man. I never really liked Skip Bayless. I always thought he was kind of an asshole. During her time at Fox, Faraji alleges she made multiple complaints to human resources and employee relations departments. And here we go. HR is useless. I could have told you that one, honey. HR is a joke. Never forget that if you ever end up in that situation. HR is there to protect the company, not to protect the employees. It goes on to say, meanwhile, the suit alleges Taylor began insulting Miss Faraji on a personal and professional level after their friendship ended. The suit also alleges that Taylor mocked the English pronunciation of Faraji, who is of Persian descent. Her lengthy tenure at Fox Sports and not so thinly veiled references to multiple anonymous witnesses suggest that she may have the receipts to back up her version of the events. Oh boy. Daniel Wallach, a sports law attorney and co-host of the podcast Conduct Detrimental, just as importantly, she contemporaneously raised these issues with coworkers, which in the jurors' eyes could boost the credibility of these claims. Ms. Faraji brings forth this action because over a decade at Fox, she was forced to endure a misogynistic, racist, and ableist workplace where executives and talent were allowed to physically and verbally abuse workers with impunity. When Ms. Faraji and others came forward to report the wrongdoing, instead of addressing their concerns, Fox retaliated against them, while the perpetrators and those who protected them are inexplicably promoted. Those who protected them were promoted. This case thus represents yet another and long line of cases chronicling the toxic culture at Fox Sports, marked by bad faith promises and repeated failures to address a poisonous and entrenched patriarchy. Fox Sports statement said that they take these allegations seriously and have no further comment. Okay, let's get to what Law and Crime had to say, because they add a little bit more information. Joy Taylor, again, is a commentator of Fox Sports. Faraji was a hairstylist who apparently went to Joy Taylor and told her that she was being groped by not just Skip Bayless, but also Mr. Dixon. And the response allegedly that came from Joy Taylor was, "Get over it." Now, why would Joy say that? Let's get into this.
On to say Miss Faraji did not know who to turn to, but as she knew Miss Taylor was sleeping with Mr. Dixon, she turned to her. Surprisingly, Miss Taylor responded to get over it and explained that she herself only had her job because of Mr. Dixon and that Miss Faraji only had her job because Miss Taylor requested her. She warned that Mr. Dixon could take both away.
So one of the things that Ms. Faraji mentions in that lawsuit is that Joy Taylor was having a relationship with Mr. Dixon, who was the executive director, the head of talent. So now this is a position of power, because this woman who's a hairstylist, she's not even one of the commentators or anything. This woman who's a hairstylist who obviously needs her job, and it was dealing with ovarian cancer at the time, from what I understand. This woman is put in a position where the woman who helped her get that job, Joy Taylor, according to Faraji, was in an intimate relationship with Mr. Dixon, who is the head of talent. So if Joy told her, if you make a big deal about this, you may not have a job. So that is a bad position to be in, and that's to no fault of her own for Miss Faraji. And then there's this issue with Joy apparently being accused of sleeping with Mr. Dixon and Emmanuel Acho to get the positions that she got at Fox Sports, to work her way up the ladder, so to speak. So the one other woman who was there, who should have had Faraji's back, didn't, because she was diddling the director. I want to say this. Oh my God, this is crazy.
The complaint goes on. Ms. Faraji was terrified and then turned to her co-worker Anonymous to discuss the situation. Anonymous responded that Mr. Dixon was disgusting, that the entire situation was sick, that it wasn't shocking given Fox's culture, and that Ms. Faraji should remain quiet if she wanted to keep her job. As a single mother who needed the job to support her son, Ms. Faraji had no choice but to remain silent.
So this is Ms. Faraji here, and she was a single mother who was dealing with ovarian cancer and was in this situation at her current employer. She needed the job because she needed the money. Oh, buddy.
So, by the way, that is one of the reasons why you might be saying, well, if all this happened, why didn't she file a lawsuit sooner? And we'll get into more of the allegations. But this is a reason. She needed the job. That's something that I will think will come up in a potential lawsuit, a potential trial, if she's being grilled under cross-examination. Okay, moving forward. Later on in the complaint, Faraji claims that Taylor continued to use her sexuality to advance at the Fox company.
This is Joy Taylor here. For those who are not aware, this is Joy Taylor, And the gentleman on her right, this is Emmanuel Acho. Okay.
And she did that by allegedly sleeping with Emmanuel Acho, a former football player turned commentator. So the lawsuit reads, quote, in approximately February 2020, Miss Taylor asked Miss Faraji to meet her for lunch in Beverly Hills. When Miss Faraji arrived, she found Miss Taylor with a man, Emmanuel Acho. Miss Faraji didn't know Mr. Acho, but could tell that the two were romantically involved. A few months after meeting Mr. Acho at the lunch, Miss Faraji noticed him in the hallway while at work. Miss Faraji later asked Miss Taylor if Mr. Acho also worked at Fox. Miss Taylor confirmed and explained that she wanted Mr. Acho to eventually recommend her on the show Speak for Yourself. Miss Faraji became alarmed and warned Miss Taylor that she should probably not sleep with Mr. Dixon and Mr. Acho at the same time.
Okay, so here is Miss Faraji warning Joy Taylor, you probably shouldn't sleep with the head of talent and Emmanuel Acho at the same time, because Mr. Dixon, who's the head of talent, is a powerful man in a powerful position. So even after Joy told Miss Faraji to get over it, allegedly, Miss Faraji was still willing to look out for Joy. Ain't that some shit? Think about that for a second, guys. After Joy turned her back on Faraji and told her to get over it after she was allegedly harassed by Skip Bayless, Miss Faraji was still trying to look out for Joy.
As Mr. Dixon is a very powerful man that may become very angry. Miss Taylor told her not to worry about it. She explained that she was also now powerful, and once Mr. Dixon was no longer useful to her, she would follow through on her plan to tell the company that he forced himself on her. She would not allow herself to be forced out by Mr. Dixon like other women talent. Wow.
Let's go back to that. This is very damning, this part right here. Miss Taylor told her not to worry about it. She explained that she was also now powerful. And once Mr. Dixon was no longer useful to her, she would follow through on her plan to tell the company that he forced himself on her. So if that is true, that means that Joy Taylor was willing to make up an accusation of sexual assault. Are you guys hearing this?
Allow herself to be forced out by Mr. Dixon like other women talent. Wow. Okay, now back to Faraji's claims of sexual battery. So Faraji says in addition to doing hair for the talent, she was also required to give haircuts to Bayless once a week. And she says that's when he started finding excuses to touch her, including giving her these lingering hugs and kisses on her cheek, where he would also press against her breasts. In approximately summer of 2017, while Miss Faraji was giving Mr. Bayless a haircut, he told her that she was voluptuous. As English is her second language and she was not familiar with the word, Miss Faraji asked what that meant. Mr. Bayless seemed amused and told her to, quote, figure it out. Miss Faraji later asked a coworker what the word meant and was mortified. Mr. Bayless then started being more aggressive and direct in his advances. Miss Faraji continuously declined, stating that she did not date at work as she is a single mom and needed her job. And Faraji also made further stunning allegations against Bayless, including that he offered her money for sex. You remember when I talked about his wealth? Well, the complaint reads, quote, in July of 2021, Miss Faraji developed issues with her left ovary and was advised it could be cancer. With a fourth biopsy scheduled, she explained her situation to Mr. Bayless, hoping that he would take pity on her and cease his advances. Instead, Mr. Bayless told her that he wanted to be with her. Miss Faraji panicked and began rambling that there were cameras everywhere, that she has a child, that she does not want him. Mr. Bayless then grabbed her hands, began kissing them, and offered her $1.5 million to have sex. Miss Faraji made an excuse to leave.
If this is true, and from what I also understand, Miss Faraji has also said that she has a recording of one of these conversations between her and Skip Bayless. Now, if that recording, if that's true, that's going to be very damning against Skip Bayless. Like, this is just, oof.
The complaint goes on. Approximately 1 week later, Mr. Bayless made another advance at Ms. Faraji. Ms. Faraji responded, "Skip, stop, you have a wife." Mr. Bayless responded, "Aren't you Muslim? Doesn't your dad have 3 to 4 wives?" Ms. Faraji responded that her father was dead, and when Mr. Bayless looked taken aback, she made an excuse to leave. Now, at one point during her tenure at Fox Sports, Bayless reportedly started to think that Faraji was in a sexual relationship with his co-host Shannon Sharpe. This is a big point in the complaint. And he allegedly confronted Faraji about it. And Faraji denied having any sort of relationship with Shannon Sharpe, saying that she was just nice to all the talent, then he was just misunderstanding the situation.
We can stop it there. You can see where this is going. So because she did not want to have sex with Skip Bayless or any type of relationship with him, he made the assumption that she was sleeping with Shannon Sharpe. So you're probably wondering, what does Shannon Sharpe have to say about all this? So I'm going to show you here just a second, because Shannon Sharpe did respond. I have not seen a statement from Skip Bayless. I have not seen a statement from Joy Taylor, but I do want to show you what Shannon Sharpe said when he was on the podcast with Ocho Cinco. Or I think he's just Chad Johnson again. Is he just Chad again? I think he's Chad again. Listen to this.
Address the elephant in the room. You're trending on Twitter. That ain't got nothing to do with me. Guys, the news of the day, absolutely, it doesn't. What y'all want me to say?
That ain't got nothing to do with us.
Yeah, that ain't got nothing to do with me. So there's nothing to address. I don't know why everybody if you notice, everybody's posted it. They got me. In the 42 pages, it don't mention nothing about Shannon Sharpe did anything. But y'all want to get clicks, so y'all mention me.
Right. Yep, ain't got nothing to do with us.
Yeah, so that was Shannon Sharpe's response. He is not, he's like, I have nothing to do with this. He doesn't even work with Skip on Undisputed. He left Undisputed. I believe that was a little over 2 or 3 years ago. Him and Skip had, their disagreements, and it was pretty heated before he left that show. So he had his issues with Skip Bayless as well. But I want to show you something else. This is very interesting. This is a clip. Now, Southside Gun found this and said, I'm just gonna leave this here. This was something that Joy Taylor said on another podcast about, I guess, how she got to where she is in her career. Listen to this.
Wake up call, same time. How would I not know how hard it is to do the show I work on? You have to constantly reaffirm that you are good enough, that you belong there, and then always prove it. So I would just always say you got to do twice the work to get half the opportunity. But that, to me, the mentality I've always had on it is that just going to make me better. So that's why I'm excellent. Because I had to be. I couldn't be average. I couldn't be okay. I couldn't be late. I couldn't complain. I couldn't say no. Now I do.
Right.
I couldn't say no. Now I do. What was interesting to me is when she said you got to do twice the work. Now, some people are also asking this question. What about Stephen A. Smith? Because he's friends with all these cats too. He's going to tell you how he feels about this. And then there is another female journalist who was a part of the sports world that is going to come onto his show and is going to tell you what it was like for her working in that environment. Listen to this.
Now, I don't know what happened. I don't work at Fox. I worked at Fox from 2001 to 2003. I haven't been there. I haven't been in that building in over 20 years. I don't know any details or anything like that. And I'm not here to castigate Ms. Faraji or anybody else. I don't know Charlie Dixon that well, even though he used to work at ESPN. I don't know Joy Taylor that well, even though she and I have interacted with one another on several occasions throughout her career, and I find her to be a consummate professional, very good at what she does, very capable, very knowledgeable.
Oh, 1 second.
That if you know people or you think you know people and you've had a long-standing relationship with those people, that it's not a crime for you to say the person that I know, the person that I've been around, the person that I worked with in his case, for 4 straight years from 2012 to 2016, doing First Take every weekday morning at 10 a.m. to 12 noon. The person that I knew since our days at Fox Sports when we would appear on Jim Rome's show, okay, The Last Word and stuff like that, and we were in the same Fox building off of Pico Boulevard and Avenue of the Stars. The person that I've seen that really, really trusts almost no one and doesn't expose himself to anybody, eating the same breakfast and lunch every day. His vice is a diet Mountain Dew, and he doesn't socialize with people.
What? I'm sorry, but I think that was going a little too hard there, Stephen A. Like, why? I don't care what he eats for breakfast or lunch. I don't care about the Mountain Dew. None of those things mean that he didn't do what Faraji said. We don't know if he did or didn't. But his diet has nothing to do with that. And just because you didn't see something happen doesn't mean it didn't happen. It's just, come on, man. Come on.
That's the guy I know. So imagining him being in this kind of position is shocking, to say the least. All I could tell you is that it's not the Skip Bayless I know. But obviously, this is a legal matter he's going to have to deal with because this situation doesn't appear to be going away. A lawsuit has been filed. This person who's a hairstylist, the people that I've spoken to in the last 24 hours that have some knowledge about her says that she's the kind of person that she's meticulous with her details and she's going to chronicle things and that's how she operates. I don't know her. I don't know them. I know Skip. And
why do people always say his name like that? Remember Shannon Sharp used to go Skip. He used to go Skip. So let me tell you guys something real quick, okay? A couple years ago, there was a football player that played for the New England Patriots. His name was Aaron Hernandez. Maybe you might remember him. Maybe you don't. But for those of us here, we definitely remember him. And I remember when I turned on the TV and I saw the police dragging Aaron Hernandez out his home with his hands cuffed behind his back. And they said that Aaron Hernandez killed 2 people in Boston. They said he was in a gang and all this stuff. And I said, oh my God, no way. I said, hell no, Aaron Hernandez. How could he have done that? And he plays so well. He goes out there on Sunday and he gives it his all going across that football field. How the hell would he have even had time to do something like that? Even some of the football players who said they knew Aaron Hernandez very well were kind of still shocked about all that. And they told you, they said, yeah, we knew, he was he had a little bit of a gangster about him and that kind of stuff. But when it was announced on the news that he killed these guys, even the people that said they knew him and they played with him and they were buddy with him like that, didn't expect that. So just because you know someone doesn't mean they're not going to do something like that. You really don't know. So Stephen A., his response is that that's not the Skip Bayless that he knows. Now, this woman here, her name is Tori. She's a journalist. She's going to come on to Stephen A. and she's going to say, let me back that up. She's coming on to Stephen A.'s show, not coming on to Stephen A. She's coming on to Stephen A.'s show and she's going to tell him what happened to her when she was in that environment. Listen to this.
Respect you, and I would expect the exact same in return. If I'm going to prepare questions and watch you for nearly 2 hours and take notes on your play, and then I show up in your locker room to have a conversation with you, and I'm even filming this myself and editing this myself at times, how come you can't give me the same respect as a professional? That was the environment I was in. And for me, that's not the level of respect I wanted to be exposed to on a daily basis. And I saw that this was going to be a mountain climb with men potentially just being disrespectful. Now, as you asked me about the difference between disrespect essentially and harassment, no one touched me. I didn't have to push advances away in the sports arena, but I did have to push advances away in the news arena. So, someone unfortunately, ended up getting fired. for the way that I was handled inappropriately. I won't, go into specific details about that, but I was at work minding my business, and essentially someone made some advances that were inappropriate, and they were eventually fired.
So this woman here, her name is Tori. She is a journalist. She was a sports journalist previously, and she was telling about what happened to her, that there were some advances that were made towards her when she was in sports journalism, and she reported it, and that person was fired, right? So it brings up a couple of questions. It brings up the question of, what is it like for a woman to work in a male-dominated field? There's that. It also brings up this question. There's so much attention on Joy Taylor on social media about her allegedly sleeping around with higher ups and everything to get ahead. But there isn't that same amount of attention on Skip Bayless. Don't get me wrong, like what Joy Taylor did, I don't approve of that. And I would hope that young women wouldn't approve of that. I think what Joy Taylor allegedly did, I don't think that's good for women, because there's a number of women who are not that way and are trying to get ahead based on their own merits and their experience. And this is why, like, when I see people like Joy or like Kamala, when you hear about what they did, like, let me get into this relationship with this guy so that I can advance in my career, I think that sets women back, in my opinion. So I don't agree with that either. I also don't agree with this comment that Joy allegedly said to Faruji, which was to get over it. So I said again, I sincerely hope that that was not what Joy said. Sincerely hope that. And then there's a situation with Faruji, who is a hairstylist there, who was basically just trying to have her job, pay her bills. She had a medical condition that she was dealing with, and she was a single mother. So there's a lot of different things going on here. And when she did go to someone to confide in them about what had happened, if the response is just get over it, what does that tell you about the culture? And to be fair, it's not uncommon for another woman to turn away. It's not uncommon. I said this before, and women in the chat, you know this. Women in the workplace don't like other women in the workplace, okay? Let's just push this to the side. Let's stop pretending like women in the workplace, especially if it's an environment where you're all trying to move up. Women in the workplace really don't like other women in the workplace. I've seen women stab other women in the back. Some stab other women in the front. I've seen it, especially if you're both trying to move up in the same department. So let's just be real about this. Okay? Women, that's something we got to deal with on our own, because that's just a reality. Women will stab each other in the back in order to get ahead. And if this is all true, it sounds like to me that what Joy Taylor was doing was looking out for herself and her career to make sure, don't you dare go anywhere with this, because you're not going to mess up what I got going on here from me. That's what it seems like to me. And I've seen that kind of thing happen too. So if she told her that to just get over it, I think what she may have been implying is, don't you even go there, because I helped you get this job because of my relationship with Mr. Dixon. And if you blow this out the water, that's going to look bad on me because I vouched for you, and you are not going to mess things up here for me. So this whole thing about women's solidarity in the workplace, I have never seen this. I've never seen it. I've seen women do some cruddy things against each other. They say when you're here, it's the Olive Garden. What do they say? The Olive Garden. When you're here, you're like family. When you at work with other women in the workplace, you are on your own. Even if they smile in your face at lunch. Let's go get lunch together. Do you want to go grab a drink after work? Yeah, sure. What? Boom. Yeah. But let some job issue come up. You are on your own. We'll have to wait and see what happens from this lawsuit. Again, these are allegations. We don't know if this is true or not. So we'll just have to be patient and wait and see. But I would sincerely hope this is not the case, that these things are not true. But if it is, that is very troubling. Mr. Natural said coworkers are not your friend. No, they are not. Mr. Natural knows. What is it? William said these males aren't much better today. Oh, so men, Daniel said men are not okay. Oh, so do guys have this issue in the workplace too? Brenda said it exists, Sabby. I had solidarity with awesome woman working in high tech for government contractor and similar. Well, kudos to you, Brenda. That's not been my experience, but I'm glad that you did have that. All right, let's go to other comments. Thank you for the super chat. Troy, older generation, just buy a house. You are wasting money. My generation spending 50% of your income on rent alone. SMH. There you go. Thank you, Rhonda. Never get your honey where you make your money. That's right. Don't do it. It gets messy. Messy. The Lion Den said so-called sisterhood phone dropped. No one says very common in the workplace. Unfortunately, there's no solidarity among women when this happens. Cloudness says, yes, this is Jason Taylor's sister. Thank you, Roger. Relationship with the head of talent? Well, I guess he was assessing her talents. Sab, why you keep mentioning her positions? How many positions she had? Oh my gosh, Roger. You guys get your mind together. Nerd says Shannon bounced just in time. Yeah. Shannon got out of there a good time. Thank you so much for the super sticker, Buyachi. Thank you. And thank you, Chris. We need details, Sabby. Who did you have to stab? LOL. Wasn't me, man. Wasn't me. You just can't trust. You can't trust these women in the workplace, man. You can't. At least I don't. I did not have good experience with that. And I think we can go to part 2 here. I'll just go ahead and pull this up here as well. Okay. We are going to get to another story that I think you need to pay attention to, regardless if you live in New York City or not, because they are planning to try to pilot this in other cities as well. So stay tuned for that. First and foremost, smash that like button. Thank you. If you're new, don't forget to like, sub, and share. Like a Care Bear, and let's bring it in. Last year, I told you that New York City was going to implement a congestion tax. That has now happened. But it's not just about the congestion tax. It's also about the ride share increase as well. They are also increasing the prices for the MTA. Let's get into the congestion tax so you can see which part of the city will be affected. And then I'm going to explain to you why I think this is going to impact the working class. Let's go ahead and bring it in here with ABC News.
A first for a major city in the U.S. Starting this morning, drivers are going to have to pay extra if they go into the busiest part of Manhattan. ABC's Phil Lipoff has more on this. Good morning, Phil. A lot of people talking about this.
Just what drivers want to hear, Gio. Good morning to you. New York City's Transportation Authority says congestion pricing is not only crucial for breaking through all that gridlock in the city, but for future investments in the city's all-important transit system. Still, some see it as an additional fee, a tax, even unfair. This morning, New York City has the green light.
We've been talking about this in New York for close to 50 years. Now it's time to get started with this historic change.
Starting today, the nation's largest city will be the first to charge drivers $9 to enter the busiest part of Manhattan, or as the Metropolitan Transportation Authority calls it, the congestion relief zone, which includes local streets and avenues south of and including 60th Street.
So let's go back to that map because I just want to look at that for a second. So they're talking about anything that is south of 60th Street. Well, guys, that's a good portion of Manhattan right there. That's a really good chunk of it. So that means if you live in any of these areas, I mean, if you're in Brooklyn, if you're coming from New Jersey, right? So you would have to deal with this. So what they have done is that they made this $9, increase here that you will be charged if you drive into the city anywhere that is south of 60th Street. Now, some of you are probably wondering, okay, so then just take the subway. It's not actually that simple, depending on what your job is. Now, the reason why they're doing this is not just to cut back on the congestion. It is also a climate initiative. And I 100% support, climate measures. But I do feel like when they made this decision, they did not think about how this was going to affect the working class. And I'm talking about these positions, the people who are drivers for rideshare companies. They didn't think about how this would impact Lyft, Uber, hell, even the taxi drivers. They didn't think about these things. They didn't think about the workers that have to drive into the city because the job that they have requires them to bring some type of equipment or supplies with them that they can't lug onto the subway. These are the things they didn't think about. So now I feel like they're penalizing the working class to pay this extra tax because they're not able to take the subway. Let's go on.
Including 60th Street. Toll rates will vary by type of vehicle and time of day. In an already expensive city with inflation still affecting the price of almost everything, the plan is generating mixed reaction on the street and online.
Feel like it's a lot. A new program's coming to New York, and it could completely transform the city.
Not only is it going to be $9, but in 3 years, 2028, it's going up again.
After months of delay, lawsuits, and a lower price point than the original $15 suggestion, New York's Governor Kathy Hochul getting federal approval, citing environmental concerns, traffic reduction, and money needed for the MTA. The new toll is expected to reduce the amount of cars in the city by 80,000 and collect billions for transit improvements. New York is not the only one taking on congestion pricing. Several cities, Washington and San Francisco, have looked at it as well. Cities across Europe already on board: London, Milan, Stockholm.
Okay, so guys, did you just hear that? So if you live in DC, heads up. If you live in San Francisco, the Bay Area, heads up. Last year when I covered the story, I mentioned Boston mayor was looking at this as well. Mayor Wu was looking at this. So I'm just giving everybody a heads up because, again, some of these cities don't have the best public transportation. Now, New York has 24/7 public transportation, but in Boston, we don't. So you can't push everybody to take public transportation if, number one, it doesn't run 24/7, especially for those that work third shift. And it's just not reliable. New York probably has the most reliable public transportation system in the country, from my experience. But that being said, some people have to drive in, and you're going to hear a little bit about that from the firefighters. Did you know that the New York firefighters are complaining about this? Now, why would that be? See if we'll get a little bit more here.
Already on board: London, Milan, Stockholm. Elect Trump, whose Trump Tower penthouse is in the congestion pricing zone, has already said he strongly disagrees with Governor Hochul's decision, calling it, we'll quote this for you, the most regressive tax known to womankind. The MTA will phase this toll structure in over 6 years. So by 2031, it will cost drivers $15 to enter the zone. Whit?
$15 as we get further ahead in future years. So just keep that in mind, guys. So here's the problem with New York City. Things are increasing and they're not decreasing. Nothing is decreasing in New York City, right? We can say that here with Boston as well. You guys, if you live in the DC area, let me know, because I hear DC isn't decreasing anything either. So everything that they are adding is costing more. Now, who is this going to impact when we talk about the jobs where you have to drive into the city? The firefighters. So the New York City Firefighter Union, they got together and they spoke out against this. And you need to hear what they have to say, how this is going to impact them.
This is a sad day for public safety for the New York City Fire Department. We have a very unique situation in which our members have utilized their vehicles in the past to transport their gear to arrive prior to the start of the tour, so there is no break in service. It allows not only better management, but better continuity. Unfortunately, we're now telling those same members not to bring their car into the business district. We're actually incurring a larger cost on one civil servant over another. So in response to that, the members have chose not to take their vehicle in. They've chose to take public transportation. Unfortunately, now their personal vehicles, which once backfilled the staffing needs of the department, are no longer available. Giving less than only 30 days notice from the time of this implementation, we can obviously see that the department did not have the ability to purchase vans to increase staffing in order to meet this need. And with over 200 details per day, that's a lot of transportation in and out of the city. While you may not see the immediate impact on a day like today, on the first day of congestion pricing, where people have already chosen to stay out of the business district, what you will see on the days to come, especially with Stoll pending tomorrow, moving those 30 people in and around the business district will be a near impossibility. What's the safety impact of that? Keeping firefighters on the rigs for greater than 24 hours. Using, constantly changing the riding positions of members. Constantly changing the riding list to account for members in a dangerous situation. That keeping members on duty longer keeps them exposed longer, keeps them more likely to get injured the longer they're on duty. By the same token, as we asked for the department to provide lockers for every one of these covering offices, so when they come in by public transportation, that they will have a place to store their gear. So when they arrive at their work location, they can be picked up by the department, because they've told us that the cars are not welcome in the district. And if they would like to bring it to aid the department, it should cost them another $9.
So does everybody see the problem here with the firefighters and the congestion tax? They have obviously supplies that they need to have with them. So they have to drive. So they can't just, let me just get on the subway to go take care. They have to drive. So he's saying that if you're going to do this, we need to have lockers at those locations so we can just grab our stuff and go. Obviously, I don't think that's going to happen. But again, I think this is one of the things they did not think about. Now, with the climate issue, as I've said before, they keep doing all these little Band-Aid activities for the climate issue, when the reality is what you really need to do is you really need to end these damn wars. I don't know how many times we have to say it, because this stuff, and yes, car emissions are an issue, but the bombs that are dropping and exploding everywhere are an even bigger issue. You have to end the wars. But they're doing things like this. This is how it's going to impact you.
We'll call it a commuting double whammy, with congestion pricing slated to go into effect in a matter of weeks.
That's right. The MTA today approving fare hikes for subway and bus riders starting as early as next summer. Fox 5's Kendall Green has the details.
Subway rides are getting a little more expensive for riders who right now pay $2.90 per trip. But come August, they could be paying as much as $3. I think it's both. As part of its final 2025 budget, the MTA board unanimously approved next year's fare hike, as the agency's top brass claims majority of their costs, 80% so far, cover people, pensions, along with their health benefits.
That's where our expenses go, as well as energy to power the third rail and to make sure that the buses move, whether it's natural gas or diesel or otherwise.
So on buses and trains, riders can expect to pay 4% more, consistent with price hikes in recent years.
I think that the prices have increased too much over the years. And I think in less than 10 years, I think the price has raised by almost $1, or 75 cents. And I think they should really change that.
But months before the looming fare hikes next summer, congestion pricing is set to go into effect on January 5th, charging drivers entering Manhattan below 60th Street approximately $9 a day. Speaking with commuters about the fare hikes, some, of course, are livid.
There's a delay every other day. There's construction happening, and it's also where's the $2.90 going to? So now it's $3 for what? You know what I'm saying?
Others keeping the big picture in mind.
I'm personally fine with it, but I think it probably would affect a lot more people than just me.
On the one hand, they have a lot of work that they need to do, but on the other hand, I don't know, it just feels like the money should come from somewhere else also, and a lot of New Yorkers are just trying to make ends meet.
Now, this fare hike has to be approved in Albany, but if it does, commuters could expect to pay at least, again, $3 per ride.
Now, last time I checked, there's over 200,000. Actually, I think about more than that now. Over 300,000 millionaires in New York City alone. There's over 200,000 in Boston. So how could they have done this differently, right? Who else could have paid for this, ladies and gentlemen? If they would have increased, like we say, tax the rich, if they would have taxed the wealthy more, they could have paid for this. instead of working class people, poor people. And I got to tell you another thing about those trains in New Jersey and the trains that go to Long Island. If you live in Long Island and you take the LIRR, which goes into the city, or if you live in New Jersey and you take, I forget the Jersey one is that one still LIRR? I forget. Anyway, if you take those trains that are coming from New Jersey or the ones that's coming from Long Island, those are increasing too. That LIRR is going up 4%. So hear me out. They want you, they're trying to basically push you not to drive into the city, or else you're going to get that $9, fee. So then you say, okay, I guess I'm just going to have to suck it up and I'm going to have to start taking the LIRR for the Long Island peeps. So you drive to the station, park your car, you got to pay to park, and then take the LIRR. Now that is increased by 4%. That one goes into effect, I think, August this year. So that increases as well. Either way, they still get money out of you. Everybody see what I mean? Either way, they're still getting money out of you, whether you choose to drive in or not. The LIR train is not cheap. So the way that I kind of see it is this tax should have been paid by the wealthy. All those millionaires that live in New York, if we tax them what they were supposed to be taxed in this country, these things it would pay for itself. But you're going to have people in Brooklyn having to pay more. Like, this is just, it's ridiculous. As long as I have known, New York City has not become less expensive. It has become more expensive. I live in Boston. I lived in New York years ago. I live in Boston area now, and I haven't seen Boston become less expensive either. So you see a trend that's happening here. So again, I'm all for finding ways to improve the climate issue, but I also think it should not be at the expense of working class people. Something to think about. What do you think? Let's go to some of the comments here. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. Thank you for the super chat, Booyachi. Would love to hear your take. The Park City Mountain Resort ski patroller strike. I have not heard about that yet. I'll have to look into it, but thank you. Teddy said Seattle has considered a congestion tax as well. See, there you go. New York is the pilots. It's the pilots. Thank you. And I cannot pronounce your name, but thank you for the super chat. Only 5,200 people drive to the Manhattan CBD, which is just 0.06% of city residents. I take the train because I can't afford a car and I'm from the Bronx. I can send you a link if you would like more info. You can email it to me. Thank you. My email address is in the description of all my videos. Thank you, Courtney. I can see Brandon Johnston thirsty ass attempting to push this tax proposal here in Chicago. Ooh, people would be mad at Brandon. And I say that because I know a lot of people are already angry with Brandon. So, he really wanted a firestorm. And Josie said, Hochul will never tax her donors. So there you go. There you go. All right. We have one more story for you tonight, ladies and gentlemen. I think it's going to be more of an entertaining one. More entertaining. If you haven't done so, smash the like. Thank you. And we're going to get into this one. Ladies and gentlemen, current affairs has exposed something that I think we all kind of figured was the case, but we didn't have receipts. Well, they brought receipts, okay? Current affairs has exposed that some of these people that were supporting Kamala Harris, that were yelling at people online, were paid influencers. Now, we found out about Roland Martin being paid. We found out about Al Sharpton being paid, and we can just put them to the side for right now. But then there are the influencers, the people who online presented themselves as just a Kamala supporter or Kamala stan, and I'm making these TikTok videos because I just love Kamala and ain't nobody paying me nothing. Now that is not the case. We can start with this image here of Too Raw, Too Real. He's probably one of the loudest ones on social media that was capping for Kamala Harris, okay? Too raw, too real. Now, here he is in a picture with Joe Biden. This is the same event that David Pakman attended, where he said it was independent influencers that got to meet with Biden and sat down with him, and they got to, grab his ear and just talk to him about some things, about talking to other politicians, etc. You can watch the David Pakman video that I did that posted earlier today to see more info about that. So Too Raw, Too Real was also one of those influencers that was there at the Biden meeting. Now, this is from CJG Productions. He was also a Kamala supporter, but he was like, they didn't lose because of him. They lost because of this, yada, yada. Yeah, I do agree. I don't think the Democrats lost because of Too Raw, Too Real. But we have to call these things out. This is the guy that they thought it would be a good idea to put front and center. So you can see it here. They're sharing it. They're saying, this is the guy. And I just want to show you some of the content. I hate how they do this. On Twitter.
Fake ass Bernie, bro. Stop putting this.
Show you some of the things that he said. And Eric, if you can increase the volume on this one. These are the type of videos that he was putting out to encourage people to vote for Kamala Harris. Okay. I think number one, this is a mockery of Black culture. In my opinion, it's a mockery of it. Also, some of the things that he said about people is totally inappropriate. But thank you, Eric.
Oh, you fake ass Bernie, bro. Stop putting this big black woman with these yellow arms under my post. Fuck Rashida, bitch. I don't give a damn about. Oh, you fake ass Bernie, bro. Stop putting this big black woman with these yellow arms under my post. Fuck Rashida, bitch. I don't give a damn about this bitch. I don't fuck with AOC. AOC can't do a motherfucking thing for me, but make me a goddamn martini, bitch. She can't do shit for me. She need to take her ass back to the motherfucking bartending days, bitch. She ain't done shit. Fuck Bernie Sanders. Tell it in his old ass, busted ass face. Let him have another goddamn heart attack. I don't give a fuck if that hurts. 2 stents, bitch. 2. Fuck you, bitch. I don't give a fuck about.
So this guy said that he didn't care if Bernie Sanders had another heart attack. So they thought it was a good idea to have. And look, I have many criticisms of Bernie Sanders. Okay. But they thought it was a good idea to have a paid influencer who was basically wishing death upon Bernie Sanders. They thought this was a good idea. They thought it was a good idea to have someone who is a paid influencer who went after Rashida Tlaib, who went after the woman at the very beginning of this video, who he's making fun of her.
Oh, you fake ass Bernie, bro. Stop putting this big black woman with these yellow arms.
This woman is one of the women that was affected by Kamala Harris's truancy law. And this is who they thought, you see what I mean? These people were like, yeah, I'm just a great, passionate Kamala supporter. These people were paid. And it's over exaggerated. Listen.
He ain't done shit. Fuck Bernie Sanders. Tell it in his old ass, busted ass face. Let him have another goddamn heart attack. I don't give a fuck if that hurts. 2 stents, bitch. 2. Fuck you, bitch. I don't give a fuck about this bitch. She ain't on the same motherfucking level as fucking Hillary Clinton. And last time I checked, Hillary Clinton was defending bitches like her. Last time I checked, bitch, she was defending bitches like you. Last time I checked, she was fighting for Muslim rights, bitch. I thought Bernie Sanders was anti-billionaire, but it's funny. Maybe it's
Hillary Clinton, he was going on to say Hillary Clinton was like pro-Muslim or whatever. Hillary Clinton is a warmonger. Hillary Clinton has always been Israel first. But this is just, and I don't know, you guys let me know. Maybe it's just because I'm getting older. I don't know, but I find this to be inappropriate for a campaign. Like, I really do. I just don't think that this is helpful for anybody, for any campaign. Oh, maybe I'm just getting older. But I just don't see This is who they wanted to pay.
Because you guys have a lot in common. Or maybe it's because the fact that you sucking his dick so hard that that's why the bottom row of your fucking teeth are rotten, bitch. Ask motherfuckers in Detroit what the fuck Rashida did for them. Ask him. Her ass went to motherfucking Washington. She forgot about niggas. All she cared about was Palestine and immigration. She didn't give a fuck about black people.
I want to go hard for Kamala Harris, but I ain't heard nothing about this black agenda. Bitch, shut the fuck up!
Again, this is a paid influencer.
It's on that motherfucking website. Look it up.
Hillary did more for black people than motherfuckers you could even fucking imagine. Fighting off segregation, going undercover, getting niggas out of jail in South Carolina.
Shut the fuck up if you don't know.
Tell me what the fuck Bernie did. Bernie is a fucking failure. How the fuck you get your motherfucking mouth to even say that shit, Bernie? Your ass ain't did shit.
The worst motherfucking representation of what a woman's supposed to be in motherfucking Congress. I've never heard motherfucking Kamala Harris ever fucking complain. Remember, before this, you was just a bitch ass bartender. Fuck AOC.
Booing a bitch who fucking fought for your bitch ass. Who fought for women's rights before your motherfucking ass even got here, a bitch. Who the fuck are you?
I feel like this is buffoonery. I don't know. Even if in my 20s, I don't think I would have liked this. I feel like it's buffoonery. It's like, let's see the loudest black guy that we can get to exaggerate a stereotype of black culture to support Kamala Harris. That's what it seems like to me. Now, I can't take this seriously. Not 1 minute.
Bitch, what the fuck you did, bitch? Your ass ain't did shit. Fuck you. Fuck you.
You're full of shit.
How dare you? How dare fucking you? Fuck you, Bernie.
Yeah, so that guy, oh my God. Current Affairs, they laid it all out there. So shout out to them for this expose. The New York Times has reported that Harris' campaign spent $2.5 million on 3 digital agencies that worked with online influencers, and it appears that the influencer in that video may have been one of them. So you see this? It says here the ads were just one piece of a campaign that had enough cash to spend on seemingly everything. There was $2.5 million directed towards 3 digital agencies that work with online influencers, the records show. The campaign spent around $900,000 to book advertising on the exterior of the Sphere venue in Las Vegas in the last week of the race. There were drone shows in the sky before the debate in Philly in September and at Pittsburgh Steelers game in October. Let's carry on. They also go on to show some receipts. One of the digital agencies hired by Harris's campaign is called Good Influence. They were paid over $600,000 from the Harris campaign from July to November. And you guys may not be able to see. Okay, you can see it a little bit. You can see it here. The spender all the way down this column. It says Harris for president, recipient, Good Influence, state, Kentucky, description, license fees, digital consulting, and all of the months here. You can see it starts with July and goes all the way through November, right? So that right there. So that's one of them, Good Influence. Then you'll see here, the influencer shown in this video wishing death upon Bernie Sanders and repeatedly calling Rashida Tlaib and AOC a B is one of the creators featured on the homepage of Good Influence website, along with Brian Tyler Cohen, among others. So here's a screenshot here, but I'm just going to go to the website so you guys can see it as well. Yeah, that is Brian Tyler Cohen. That was, how do I go back to that? Oh, I guess it'll go back to it. That's Brian Tyler Cohen, who has over 3 million subscribers on YouTube. What did I tell you guys? What did I tell you about these people that they're calling independent that are not independent? They're on a YouTube, they have a YouTube show, and they have a setting that makes it look, okay, you know, it's not as fancy of a background as MSNBC, Fox News, or CNN. So you assume people think they're independent, but they're not. And look, if you're not, fine, but don't tell people you are. That's my thing. Like, keep it 100. Okay. So you'll see there's Brian Tyler Cohen. I don't know why they would have him here if he's not a part of it. You see what I mean? Then if we look a little bit further, trusted by hundreds of organizations, and this is them just doing their job. I'm not trying to say they can't do this, right? But yes, on Prop 3, Move On, United We Dream, Wisdoms, to name a few, Environmental Defense Fund, right? But it says good influence has been key in reaching new audience segments at high volume. So you see this? So it says a different take on influencers. Good influence creates meaningful impact for causes and campaigns. Our network of powerful online messengers. See, guys, look at this. Look at these people. So if you're on TikTok, if you're on Twitter, you might recognize some of their faces. This is what I was saying. So with their combined audience and a united voice, our creators effectively mobilize awareness and actions for issues we care about. I remember him. Like, see how I was just scrolling across the page? So this is what I wanted you guys to see, because they're trying to pass people off as independent commentators or independent content creators that just happen to like so-and-so candidate, but they're not telling you that they're paid. When my comrade JB went to work for Jill Stein's campaign as press, he disclosed that. He would say, full disclosure, I am working for the campaign. So that's what people ask. If you are paid to do work for that campaign, you need to disclose that information. Yeah, JB saying, oh, snap, I've seen some of these people. I'm following some of them. I have some people I need to unfollow. Yeah, like this guy I know I've seen. So the people, they can't lie about this. Your face is here. And if you don't want your face to be there, then don't be there. But don't lie to people. Stop trying to make it seem. There's Brian Tyler Cohen. So does everybody get it now? So let's go back here. At this point in time, because see, there was Too Raw, Too Real right there. The bottom corner right there. Now, I don't know if he reached out and said, get me off of there or what. I don't know. But what I do know is these people need to come legit. When you are doing this, you say, full disclosure, I am an influencer with such and such company for this campaign. Paid for by the Kamala Harris campaign. Full disclosure. So the point that current affairs ends with is this. If these influencers were paid by Harris's campaign without disclosing it, it is yet another example of how the Harris campaign resembled a multi-level marketing scheme more than a serious political movement. So just one big scam. And here's another one that you'll see from Too Raw, Too Real. I'll show you again how you could tell that they were paid. Now, all of a sudden, he cares about Israel and Gaza. When Kamala Harris was still in this race, he didn't want to hear about it. Now, all of a sudden that Trump is going to the White House, now here he is trying to warn people about what's going to happen to the people in Gaza. You'll notice he's much more calmer on this video. Gee, I wonder why. Listen.
So in today's episode of You Get What You Asked For, Israel is thinking about limiting humanitarian aid to Gaza after Trump's inauguration. So far, Israel has been giving humanitarian aid to Gaza according to the commitment that was made by President Biden, but this could change in the upcoming weeks with the new administration. In fact, they've been considering passing new laws that would restrict the amount of aid that would go into Gaza because they believe that it's actually only helping Hamas refuel and restore its capabilities. For everybody who was complaining about Genocide Joe and saying that Donald Trump presidency will be no different than what's going on with Biden's administration, I want y'all to know that this is what you asked for.
Pause. So this is also misleading, right? Because what he doesn't do is that he doesn't tell you that the aid is not getting in. He doesn't tell you that they've been starving people in Gaza since October 1st. He doesn't tell you that there have been multiple videos where they have had reporters there asking, why aren't you letting these supplies get in? And they say, because Israel won't let us do it. So he leaves that information out because guess who he was working for? I'm going to tell you folks, stick with me, you'll be all right. If you follow the money, you will get a lot of your answers. You'll get a lot of it. Now, all of a sudden, this guy cares about the people in Gaza. After he didn't call Rashida Tlaib every other type of name, right? Now, all of a sudden, all these people are going to say they care because Trump is coming into office.
You asked for poor women and children to not get food, water, and any type of aid. And now, since Joe is on his way out and the only thing stopping this, it seems like the blood is on your hands if you decided to set out this election.
So you see what he's doing, right? So this is manufacturing consent. They have people that are pretending to be independent to make you think you're getting an authentic, off the cuff opinion, and you're not. As if the rest of us don't know that they've been starving these people. So he is out here to make it seem like, and he's going to read that article from CNN and ignore all the other articles that were under the Biden administration. So he's going to read that article and say, oh, Donald Trump's administration says they're going to limit humanitarian aid in Gaza, but doesn't tell you, which I disagree with, but doesn't tell you that the Biden administration, although they sent aid, Israel isn't letting any of the aid go through. Don't you think that's something that people should know? Don't you think, again, if you're outside of that system, don't you think that is something that you should tell people? FYI, they sent aid under the Biden administration, but Israel is not allowing the aid to come in. People have been starving there since October 1st. They stopped allowing the food to come in. Why would he leave that out? Because he was paid to. So when you go back to even Brian Tyler Cohen, Eric, can you pull up Brian Tyler Cohen's YouTube? Brian Tyler Cohen, who's on that site as one of the paid influencers. Even if you look at him, okay? How is it that this is not disclosed? How is it that when he did all these interviews with Nancy Pelosi and Kamala Harris, why is it not disclosed? I'm not telling you what you can and can't do for your career. I give zero fucks. If you want to do that, that's on you. The question is, why did you not disclose it? We'll go to Brian now. Thanks, Eric. So we'll go to Brian here, right? So peep this, fam. This is Brian Tyler Cohen's YouTube here. Brian has 3.49 million subscribers. 3.49 million subscribers. You think Brian got that on his own without any type of help? Come on, fam. Let's see when the channel started. This channel started 2011. So he's been there for a while. But we know people who've been there longer than him. And he has the 3.49 million subscribers. His job is to kiss up for the Democratic Party and to defend them at all costs. So listen to this. What does Brian say?
My name is Brian Tyler Cohen, and if you're looking for the most watched political videos when it comes to breaking news and countering disinformation, you're in the right place. So here's what sets this channel apart. I'll do breaking news coverage every day, where I'll play the clip first so you can see for yourself exactly what's happening, followed by all the analysis you need to make sure you get the entire picture. I host the biggest interview series on YouTube, where I sit down one-on-one with the most important names in politics today.
Thank you. Let me pause here. Now, you see these people that just went through on the screen. You got Bernie Sanders. You had Nancy Pelosi. Obviously, I showed you the one where he sat down with Kamala Harris. How is it that Brian Tyler Cohen can get these people on his show? But you and I, we know people that's been doing this for almost, 15 years now? They can't get those people on their show. Let me know. Let me know. How is that? Don't you think that's a little bit strange? Have you seen Nancy Pelosi on TYT? Like, come on, ask yourself these questions. Very strange, huh? That's Rachel Maddow with Brian Tyler Cohen, and it is what it is. More props to you, Brian, but you probably should disclose that you are paid by the good influencer company, which was also paid by Kamala Harris's campaign. You are paid to do what you do. That should be disclosed. So these people are not independent. That's what I was trying to get across to people. And I worry about this. I worry that people are going to see people like Brian, etc., and they're like, oh, yeah, they're independent. They're not independent. So if we go back to, he said the most watched interviews in the world. Why is that? Because you're paid. The Democratic Party got you on their payroll. We can go back here. Again, if we go back to the website, where did it go? Oh, I don't know where we were. I don't know what happened. But anyway, the website that I was showing you guys, it showed that, oh, thank you, Eric. Right here. If you go back to the top of Good Influence website, there's Brian Tyler Cohen right there. He's one of their creators. Why is no one else calling this out? Shout out to Current Affairs. Shout out to Current Affairs for calling this out, because they discovered the information. Right there. Boom. For all of you to see. So to their point again, if these influencers were paid by the Harris campaign without disclosing it, it is yet another example of how the Harris campaign resembled a multi-level marketing scheme more than a serious political movement. And people have to start paying attention to this. Okay? Just pay attention, guys. And I just don't want people to fall for the okie doke. The too raw, too real one. I mean, I think a lot of people kind of knew, but we didn't have receipts. But thanks to Current Affairs, now we have the receipts. So there you go. The system is fixed. Let's get the comment on Rumble. Eric, thank you. Oh, thank you. Thank you for the tip on Rumble. Influencer still deserves the Medal of Freedom more than Hillary. I don't know. I don't even know how I feel about that Medal of Freedom, as I don't feel like they really give it to people that are trying to call for freedom. I don't know. Thank you, Courtney. I knew Too Raw, Too Real was paid by the Dems when he said that he'll gladly bend over if Biden needed some booty. Oh boy. I didn't know he said that. Miss Kiwi said, Sabby, there's so many more on TikTok and Instagram every day, buffoonery and sassy all day. Thank you, Roger. And still lost with such stellar outreach campaign. Thank you, Janine. This is what they think about us, and use it to show white folks at the same time a reason to dehumanize us. F him. Yeah. Yeah, buddy. Thank you, Courtney. I think it was reported a year prior before the election that the Democrats had plans to spend billions or millions on celebrity and internet influence. There you go. Thank you for the super sticker, Bill Crosby. Thank you. Not to be confused with Bill Cosby. And JB says, meanwhile, I'm not at 5,000 subs and I'm heavily suppressed. The system is rigged. They get the YouTube algorithm and favorable push from corporate algorithm. Yes, that's right. JB's right. And Mitt says Mel Gibson and Hulk Hogan getting medals next. Bill Crosby says, I'm surprised that Joe didn't give Too Raw the Medal of Honor. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Yeah, it says something, you guys. All I know is we just got to pay attention to what's going on out there because I don't know. Shout out to Current Affairs, though. Shout out to them. All right, guys, that is it for me tonight, ladies and gentlemen. I made good time. We will do call in on Thursday night. I think people tend to like call in on Thursdays a little bit better, is what I've been hearing from people. So we will do that on Thursday. That also works out for me as well. And thank you, Susanna. Another really good show, Sabby. Thank you. Thank you so much. So I will see you guys live Thursday evening, and I should have another panel that is going to be coming up hopefully soon. So we will see. Anyway, if you're looking for something else to go watch, if you didn't see it, please go over to Revolutionary Blackout Network and watch the live interview of Nick with Rokana. Check that out. All right, guys. Have a good night. Keep up the fight.